Energy. As you know, there are at least two major sections of energy: transportation fuels and power generation. We focus primarily on the electric, the power generation sector, although we do have some suggestions. So the current state is the border region is right now, as we've heard from Gabriella's discussion and others, and the work with Margarito has been going on for some time, is that right now most of the energy source is so-called carbon-based fuels, the fossil fuels, oil, coal, and natural gas. This is, of course, an accurate description for the whole global system. Over 85% of global energy comes from the traditional fuels, the same in the United States. So there's nothing unique to the border. There are some programs already that exist for energy efficiency on both sides of the border. And in Mexico, there is a recognition that the transmission sector in particular is quite inefficient. Some numbers are quite high. It's controversial, but there's a significant amount of energy that's lost due to the transmission of power in the CFE grid. Traditionally, even in the US side, the best cases in Europe and the US, maybe 7 to 8% is lost in transmission. Of course, the further away it is, the more that's lost. But in Mexico, those numbers could be, it came out in some of our discussions, as high as 17%. Where is Gabriela? She's left, okay. 17, is that something like that, Margarito? Which is, just means you have to generate that much more power, which means there's more pollution. What needs to be done? Nothing new here, but it's still really valid. Continue to expand and conservation energy efficiency. Remember, efficiency is not the same as conservation. Efficiency is using the same process, but getting more work out of it. So having a more efficient refrigerator. But if you get a more efficient refrigerator and then take your old one and put it in the basement and use that as a refrigerator freezer, that's not energy efficiency. Conservation is you get rid of the old one. So if you get a fuel-efficient car, but then drive twice as many miles because you're saving gas, you think you're not contributing much to the environment except you're just treading water. So these programs, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in the border region, in insulation, in reducing demand, in efficiency in the electrical sector, in motors, in weatherization, etc. One point that was useful to make is that one reason for generating power locally, conventional or renewable, non-conventional, is that you reduce the supply line. So you don't bring oil from the Middle East, you don't bring natural gas from Indonesia or from Canada. That, of course, reduces costs and retains resources in the region, which also results in shorter transmission lines, so-called distributed generation. You're always better off generating the energy closer to its use, which makes it possible to use heat and combine heat and power. One of the drivers that we always wanted to keep in mind is we're trying to, for a sustainable border region, which is the theme, is energy security, energy economy, public health, and economic development. Energy is a vehicle for economic development if done properly. If done properly, the resources, that if they're local, the jobs, the money stay in the community. And that could be the same for oil and gas as well, but primarily for non-conventional resources. If you buy gas from Indonesia or from Canada, the money goes there and the jobs go there. If you create those, that energy infrastructure locally, you're investing in the region on both sides of the border. We also try not to avoid nuclear power and make believe it doesn't exist. And instead of trying to finesse it and just get around it somehow, I was the one who pushed and said, look, either we embrace it or we don't, but we got to say something. We can't just let it hang out there and let people think we're unaware of it. So the feeling was nuclear power is likely to play a role. How it will play out in the border region is unclear. It becomes a national issue. However, our Mexican colleagues said that it's a dead duck in Mexico because of the problems with Laguna Verde. And the likelihood of building a nuclear power plant on the Mexican side of the border was very, very low, if not nil. And then we said, well, if the U.S. is going to build a nuclear power plant on the U.S. side of the border, we better have some consultative mechanism with Mexico, not to veto it or not, but to incorporate it then, because you can imagine the ill will that's going to be generated if there's no input whatsoever from the Mexican side. So consultation. Diverse mix, which is always a good thing to do. The siting of generation sites on the border requires a binational energy commission. Now this is a new thing that I haven't seen before. There's been discussions about binational energy groups, etc. But consistent with the transboundary, whereas Rick, environmental impact assessment, we're suggesting there needs to be cross-border discussion when siting major energy facilities. So you ought not to put a power plant or a renewable solar plant or a wind plant in Texas or Arizona, New Mexico, California, without at least the recognition that energy is a regional issue. Ideally, we're suggesting a binational energy commission which would plan regionally energy infrastructure, so that energy infrastructure would be sited to benefit. It would be cited using economics and resources as the main reason, not which side of the border it's placed on. So if there's a better wind site in Mexico, a plant should go there. If there's a better solar site in Arizona, it should go there. And of course, there would be transmission across the border. But that should come out of a binational energy commission, or at least an advisory commission that would advise the national authorities. And then, by considering cross-border generation and transmission along these lines, that would rationalize the economic benefits to both sides of the border. Right now, energy planning is done completely without any consideration for the needs of the other side.